I was halfway through cancer treatment when I found out I was pregnant. I was going for monthly infusions. I still had maybe 6 or 7 more rounds left to go, but I was done. I didn't want to do it anymore. I was actually in the hospital for a halfway point checkpoint CT scan. And that was one of those moments where there was an intuition thing. There was a ping that I had in my body. It was so crazy to me. I didn't even think at that point that I was fertile. I was always having irregular cycles, and my cycle would come anywhere between 35 to 45 days. So I just was like, I thought I was going to be one of those people that got married and would have to try. And then I get to the hospital. They put a hep block in to get the IV started for contrast. They did not put, obviously, any sort of contrast in my body yet, but I was getting prepped for the CT. They asked me if I had filled out a pregnancy questionnaire, and I was literally looking at the machine straight in the face. I was ready to go into it, and I was like, oh, did you fill out this? I'm like, what pregnancy questionnaire? No, I didn't fill anything. And I'm filling it out. Like, could you be pregnant? I even filled out no. And then like, oh, when was the date of your last cycle? And I'm like, oh, well, it was like 40 days ago. So then I hand back this piece of paper to this tech, and he's like holding it, trying to take it out of my hands, and I'm like still not letting go. And I'm like, can I just take a test just in case? And there was like never a time I feel like where I had asked for a test, or like I think I had maybe taken one pee in a cup test prior to starting immunotherapy, but they weren't a regular thing that was administered then.
Right.
So then they can't even find an actual pregnancy test. I had to pee into a big styrofoam cup. And so awkwardly position it and give it to them. And they basically take my sample and put it into a test. At this point, I'm just waiting for the negative test. I'm like, okay, I'm just doing this to rule it out. But something in me told me, like, ask for a test. So I'm just like, let me listen to that. Let me follow that. And so the nurse comes back after what feels like an eternity. I don't know if she was just looking at this test confused, like, oh, we were not expecting. But she comes back and she's like, I'm going to try again. And I'm like, well, what happened the first time? And she's like, well, it's positive. And I'm like, huh. Oh, earlier that day, I was like at Marshall's trying on clothes, and I was like puffing out and like at this point, I'm like barely pregnant. I'm like 5-6 weeks pregnant. So there's nothing you can even be showing, but I'm like puffing out my belly and like sucking it back in and puffing it out and sucking it in. I'm like, you're just crazy. Like, what are you doing? Like, sleep. And so then the nurse does a second test. And at this point, I hop out of my seat. I go to like her little testing station, and I'm like looking at this test, and it's like, no, there's 2 bright pink lines. And I'm like, there's not even a faint line. There's 2 lines. And so I'm like, okay, so we do a second test. Second test is positive. Then she's like, I'm going to call my supervisor over. As though this is like some sort of like rocket science. What is your supervisor going to do differently? That we're taking one little pipette into a cup, putting it into a test. So I'm looking at the instructions, like flipping them around. Maybe I missed them. Like, is there a such thing as a false positive? Like, if we look at them thinking about the movie Juno, like she's like trying to like move it, and it's like this, like, it's just like, it's not an etch a sketch. It's positive. I'm pregnant. It was just one of those like beyond moments of just, I was like shocked. It was February. It was cold outside. I'm telling this nurse essentially my whole life story. I'm not married. I had this fling essentially in Mexico. Like, I definitely had love for baby daddy, but I was just like, I thought I would have a house and like married, and but at the end of the day, I don't do anything traditional. So it only made sense that this is how this would happen. So I get in my car and I call baby daddy, Nathan. Hey, like, this is what happened. I just got a positive test. He's like, are you driving? I'm like, yes, I am. He's like, well, can you pull over? I'm like, I see a CVS. I'm going to grab a couple more tests. And so I grab a couple more tests. I take those home. But yeah, obviously, like, hang up the phone with him. I'm starting to calm down. And my mom's asking me, like, how did your CT scan go? And I was like, well, I didn't have it. At this point, I bought the clear blue that just, there's no more pink lines involved. It just says, the results just say pregnant or not pregnant. And I pee on that. It says pregnant. Well, in my chart, it'll still say that patient had positive pregnancy test ×5. And then, because obviously I had that blood test confirm it as well. But yeah, it was honestly magical. Like it was also another one of those like, what in the actual fuck moments where I was just like, I remember calling my best friend and she's like also on the phone like, here's my life. Nothing is usual or just how it never follows one path. I'm always, I think, in some sort of jungle that, the park rangers have not cleared out of hiking paths. And I'm just constantly looking at it like, okay, I think this is the path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because obviously you're in the middle of, we're kind of near the end of your cancer treatment at that point. And, definitely an option, I guess, at that point would have been to terminate the pregnancy. Like, why did you choose to go with the pregnancy and choose that route instead?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really valid question because I looked at it from like a sign from God, universe, that like, okay, I went through the treatment. And even when I checked with my oncologist, he's like, I feel like we got the reaction and response from your body that it's enough for your 6 or 7 rounds that you've had. Because I had already been like really fatigued and breaking out in rashes and just having all these side effects. That like, okay, we got the response we needed from your body, so we can stop the treatment. But for me, it was like a sign from the universe that like, this is what's meant for you. This is, and like I had always dreamed of, for me, like some people aren't sure whether they want to be a parent or not. I had dreamed of being a mom. That was something that I always wanted. And so at that point, I was 30 years old and I just trusted. I trusted that that I meant to have Julian. And so, yeah, obviously I stopped cancer treatment. I had such a honestly great pregnancy. I loved being pregnant. I felt good. I had my bouts of like nausea or tiredness. But overall, I traveled. I went to Costa Rica. I literally was traveling once a month while I was pregnant. I'm like, let me just like adventure and like have so much fun with this pregnancy. I had no idea what it was going to look like. I still continue to travel even with Julian. I think life does not stop once you become a mom or a parent. And so for me, I knew that this was something that was meant for me. And so I decided, I was like, this is how life is supposed to unfold. I trusted that that was the path. But yeah, we went to Electric Forest together. I can't remember. I think I was like 6 or 7 months pregnant at Electric Forest.
Yeah. You're pretty far along at that point because you had your little baby sign.
I had a little baby bump. Yeah, I had a bump. So yeah, I had so much fun with it, and then continue to travel and have fun. I think that's the point.
Yeah.